Hello everybody, behind me is the cathedral that I've been working on over the last few episodes. It's currently a work in progress, but hopefully by the end of today's video it should be completely finished. The final part that needs building is the section that fits right on the back over here. And then there are a couple of interior details that I want to fix up here at the very top and over where the tower is that we made in the previous episode. So that means lining up the schematic one last time, collecting up all of the resources one last time, and finally building one last time. Isn't she beautiful? The exterior has finally been finished, and look how great this thing looks at night with all of the windows glowing from the lights on the inside. I actually had so much fun putting this section together. I really did enjoy it, and I even came through and made a lot of edits to the schematic as well. In fact, in my inventory here you can see all of these blocks you're looking at are ones I ended up removing from the build as they weren't needed, and so I ended up saving quite a bit, making this schematic a lot more streamlined for when you want to put this together yourself. But otherwise, I think what we should do now is just take a quick spin of this thing one last time and take a look at all of the new details that have been added. As I fly on up into the air, you can see that the hall section we made over here kind of carries through over into this section that we made today, and it's really very similar on the roof, except that on this side of course it's the very end, and so it curves off and it almost looks like a wizard tower from this perspective. It's a pretty cool shape, but then below we have something slightly different, because down here we had this section which kind of sticks out at the bottom, creating up the bulk of the hall that we have down there, whereas on this bit it's kind of been removed. A little bit of it just about sticks out through here and then immediately curves back in, and it's created this fun little corner section with these little windows and a small roof up there, which I really quite like as well. But as this whole section does carry through, it also keeps the flying buttresses over to this side as well. However, these are also slightly different, so instead of them connecting down to the building, they actually head all the way down to the ground, and they're connected via these sections that jut out from the lower bit, and it creates for some really nice shapes, which I find it really intriguing to look at, especially here on the diagonals. A lot of the same materials were used as you can expect, so we've got all of the mossy and sort of cobbly foundation at the bottom, and then we've got the tuff and the stone and andesite creating texture and detail throughout these walls, even where there isn't shape. And then up top we've got the stained glass windows again, and at the very top you can see I even added another weed up here, which you can just about make up below, because of course this right here is the gutter that would fill up with water from all of the rain falling off the roof And up here you can see we've even got ourselves the little windows once again. So I'm sure we'll see the exterior of this plenty more times in the future. Now I think what we should do is head on inside, as there's a lot going on in here too. So this entire section past these two pillars is the brand new bit. And so that's opened up these little rooms that we kind of discussed in the previous episode. At the moment these are just small little candle rooms, and their really kind of main purpose here is to make your way on up to this sort of altar, which is where the priest or whoever's preaching here would stand and kind of address the audience over here. And so let's actually walk on through here. You can see I've used the dark oak signs again, similar to what we have over here with the gates to make a kind of barrier, as of course we don't want everybody going through here. I've got quartz up in these little sections because if you see on the ceiling, that's also what I'm using, so it kind of just looks good when you're looking up here like this. And this new section even has the buttons and the extra details that I added in the previous episode, so everything here matches up nicely. And up on the very top, the windows are actually very similar to what we've seen up here. It's kind of following that design across, but it starts to get new and interesting when we take a look at these three up here, as this is the new kind of curvy corner section that is unique to this bit. And so we've got some slightly smaller windows up there, and then on the walls things change as well because we've got some nice curved walls. And so after this little section I do have a small few sort of temporary details, little bookshelves and a carpet and things, but where I really had some fun was in this corner section. It's kind of been turned into almost a library looking area, but it could be a good place to sort of study some textbooks and do what you need to do in a cathedral. I'm not quite sure, but it does look quite nice with the chiseled bookshelves on this side, and then these ones are just regular. And the reason for that is I've had a little bit of fun with some of the spaces left in between. Of course I showed you that I've got all of these materials, and as you may have spotted in the time lapse, there's a few gaps in this building. Now similar to what we have over here, you'll notice that in certain places you're able to very sneakily, if I can get up here, add in some secret rooms such as these ladders that head on up, and that's just a fun little detail to add to these old sorts of buildings, and I've been up to my tricks once again. So I figured we've got some bookshelves here, we have to have a secret bookshelf, and I was thinking of kind of an obscure way of hiding a button or something, and I figured, hey, we have some blast furnaces that make up the texture in the floor here. It would be a wasted opportunity if we don't use these to make the entrance. And so as you can see here, we've got ourselves a magic wand. If I pull this out, it reveals the secret door in here. So as we head on under, you can see this right here is one of the first little secret rooms we've got. And if we just open up this hopper, as you can see, we can throw in our magic wand and it will close right back up again. And if we want to come back through, we can just hit this button and that will also do the job. And you'll notice there, as the bookshelf raises, the texture actually changes. And I got really lucky. You'll notice that with these full bookshelves instead of the chiseled ones, I have a varied texture in my resource pack, and so you get a lot of different patterns, and there's this one specific one that just so happens to have very little on the top shelf, right? And of course the chiseled ones here don't have a lot of books in them, but you'll notice just by off chance that the random texture ended up using this one instead of one of the full ones. And so it fits in perfectly, and you would almost never guess that this isn't a chiseled bookshelf, and when you walk on through here it works perfectly. So that was really nice. And so finally let's actually walk on through here and see what we've got going on. And by the way, the reason I actually chose to make these chiseled bookshelves instead of all of these, you can see that of course we've got the wood on the back except for this one, as unfortunately we can't move these with pistons. That was the reason I did that. I just wanted to look nice from back here. I created a little sort of arch up here to make it look nice, and then this is another ladder that heads upwards. And so this is just taking advantage of some of the spare space we had. There was a lot of others, but most of them you can't do much with, and so I just settled to use this one. Up here we've got a little lantern and then a door which leads us to the very roof section of the brand new section we fitted on today. And so this is the tower we made yesterday or in the previous episode, and this one right here is the new section. And so you can see that we have a similar situation with the beams that you can find on that side, only I've been sort of fixing up some of the details to incorporate this lower section that leads to the secret room, and that gave me the idea to actually tackle some of the ones over here and do a similar thing. And so you can see, besides sort of tweaking the windows a little bit to make this look a little better, I've also come through here and switched up some of the interior details. It's not quite finished yet, in fact that's what we're going to do in a moment, but you can see that I've also lowered in these sections, because it just so happens that the roof we have below, which is kind of a curved roof, leaves these little bits on either end of where we have this sort of dome under there, and in these spaces it enabled me to just create this fun little nook where we can store some stuff. They're actually all the same, as I didn't quite feel the need to fill them with unique details. That's pretty cool, adds a little expansion to the attic up here. But now what I would like to do is actually come through and add a whole bunch of detail to this place. I want to add some typical attic detail along these bits, and then even create some custom rooms in here, maybe another sleeping quarters and things like that. And I'd also quite like to tackle the flooring, as I think the oak is maybe a little bit plain, so I'd like to play with that, maybe add in some textures. So I'm going to get to work on that, and we'll see if we can transform this place into a fully detailed up interior. But firstly, I'm going to give you a little insight into how I made the redstone back here, for those of you who are wondering. And so this is what we've got. This is the magic blast furnace where we place in the wand, and we've simply got a comparator coming out of this, which leads to a piston, and when it's in there, the piston is extended and the door is opened. And once we remove it, it unextends and it opens up the door. So that was pretty simple, but then of course I wanted to find a way to get that item back in there from the inside, and so I added in a little hopper, which you can see travels around up here and down and back into period, enabling you to get back through. And so it's pretty compact. I like it because it doesn't sort of go below the foundations here, and so it fits in the schematic nicely, and it's got those three functions, so it all works out pretty nicely. And that pretty much does it for the little redstone bit. Time to move on to finishing up the interiors. 17 hours. That's the total of all of the replay footage of putting this thing together combined, and that excludes designing it up as well as collecting all of the resources. So needless to say, this project is certainly the largest that I've made in this world so far. And I think what we should finally do now is take one last look around, as of course, not only have I just built what we saw there, but once again I've done a few bits off camera. So let's actually head up here to begin with, as I've been doing a little bit of work with my resource pack, which I'm sure you'd be familiar with if you follow my Discord. So to begin with here, we've got this small sleeping chamber, and you may remember from the previous video that I mentioned the beds looked a little bit odd and I wanted to tweak them, and that is exactly what I've done. You see, what I like to do in my resource pack is take colours that I'd usually never use, like pink and purple and magenta, and turn them into a more usable colour so that I can expand my block palette. And so what I've got here is 2 brown beds and a white bed, but I've also got some more colours which you can see on my Discord, as I haven't used them here yet. And the goal with these is really to make it look as vanilla as possible. So the wooden frames here actually use the same colours as stripped dark oak wood, and then for the beds, the white one is just an off-white, but the brown beds that I've created are actually leather colours that you can create with dyes, and I even have these on me. So these are the 3 beds that I've created, and these are the 3 colours. I believe it's brown and brown, brown and grey, and brown and black that create these colours, and then I just transferred those over to bed form. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these look now. I think it's a lot nicer than just having that plain brown or white bed everywhere. And so that's the first change I've made here. You'll also notice that on the wall the clock is looking a little bit different. That's because I've removed the feature where there was no background behind it. Although that was perfect for when I'm not using shaders, unfortunately it does not work with shaders, and I really want everything in this world to be compatible. And so what I've done for the brown clock, I've given it a stone brick background here, and then I believe the black one has a spruce background, and so does the utensils one for the kitchen. And I think that that's just a little bit more future proof. Of course, here with the stone it doesn't quite work yet, but I do have a plan to fix that, and so in the future I suppose I'll do a little bit more work with the paintings, but for right now that's all I've done for that change. And then as we walk on through here, you'll notice that the candles up here are now grey. That just blends in a little bit better. For example, there's one right at the back over there, and you can't even see it now from a distance when the flames aren't doing their sort of animation. And so that's a lot nicer. These are really useful because when it's nighttime like it is right now, from the outside you get that nice glow from the windows, and I just didn't like the sort of white or the tan candles we had before, as they were quite visible. And so that's a pretty good change, I think. And finally over here I've used a couple more of my double half slab textures that I have as part of my resource pack. You can see a couple of them here and also up there around the windows. I almost completely forgot that these exist, and so that just means we've now got another level of detail up here, once again expanding that block palette. So as for some of the build changes, let's take a turn from that bedroom we were just in and head on up the staircase to one of my window rooms, where you can see on this side I have a painting. You all know that on the other side the painting leads to the secret fireplace, and I figured why not, let's create a little secret room for this one too, as this has just the same space that we used for the chimney. So this is a small secret room. It's another ladder one yet again that heads all the way down into this little place. It hasn't been furnished yet. I want to tackle this later as it connects up to these rooms here. You may recognise those as the ones that we have behind the organ. You can see where it pokes out there, and these are going to be connected to my underworld in the future, and so I'm just sort of going to tackle all of that a little bit later on. I did another little one over on this side, but in order to check that out, we're actually going to go all the way up to the new interior we just made, as that is where it all begins. Look at that beautiful sunset. This time around we're going to start from this side instead of entering the secret room, as this is where I started all of the detail work. And look at what an amazing atmosphere all of this has created in this space. It was so bland before, and now it just looks so detailed. So you can see that in this section that carries all the way along and even past the tower room, we have a typical attic space. So this is filled with all kinds of different crates, boxes, barrels and wooden bits that you may expect to find up here. This is actually a blue glazed terracotta, if you was wondering what that custom model is. And then these are also terracotta blocks to create the crates. Once again, another resource pack feature similar to these little mini barrels, which is the spruce sapling. But as we walk on through here, you can see I've even got a couple of pots over here, one of my custom plants once again, growing by the light in the window, and over on this window I have a little step which will soon be able to look out over the city near to where the harbour is down there. And then as we carry on through, we've just got a few more boxes, little jukebox here. I like to hide one of those in all my interior rooms so that you can sometimes play music, and this is a really big one using the looms, which have a really nice texture. I do like the loom. And so this here is the tower. This one is a little bit more simple. You can see again I have a few pots, but I also have some copper pipes coming along the walls, and around the sides we just have some shelving units and some general kind of interior design elements that you might expect to find inside places. But you can see that this is basically very similar to what we just walked through. It continues through down this way until you get to the very end, and this is of course is the other entrance to that secret room that we saw earlier. And so this is all well and good, but what I'm really excited about is these little rooms that we have on either side. So you can now see that I transformed the archways, which used to look like this, into proper doorways, and I really quite like these designs. I'm really happy with the doors, and that's because you may remember that they looked really goofy on this side, and I found a way to spruce it up literally, and it looks a lot better now. And so I decided to mirror it over to this side, and it creates this individual separate room that you can add some details to. And so for this one here, I have a small little library room for storing documents and things. I love adding these little places. So here we've got some various details that you might expect to find in a room like this, and I like this little chair here because it lets you look out the window once again. But on the other side I have another sleeping chamber, and here you can get another look at my beds that I've done once again. So these are the really dark ones, I think these are the grey ones, and then the brown and brown I haven't used here. But this is just a nice cozy little room with some drawing units and a table, you know, bedside cabinets, little hanging pot, things like that. But otherwise that about does it for the interior, other than the fact that I've now got the updated windows, which I think I mentioned before. This looks so much better. I cut away at it and tried to create as much space on the inside as possible. It really helps open it up, as before somehow it felt more crammed than when we're actually in here filled with interior details. This little detail on the floor here is a skeleton skull on an armor stand. Not sure what it's meant to represent, but I just thought it looked cool. I fancy playing around with some of that stuff. I've got some signs indicating where you can go, and as we head on up the tower, I decided not to tackle anything here, as I thought it was good enough as it is, just a little bit plainer. You don't need to have a fully detailed room in every location, I don't think. But one final thing you may have spotted is up here. You'll notice I have that little variation to the spruce texture over at the very top. And if you're wondering what that is in fact a vanilla texture. It's actually the back of a barrel, which I really do quite enjoy playing with. And before we finish up here, I mustn't forget to show you that final secret room. So you see this little table here? We can just pop on down here and through here, and it reveals there is in fact a little scaffolding beneath here that you would never know existed. And if we head on down here like Super Mario, it reveals another secret room. So here we have like a small shrine to something, and to the right we have a glass flooring that leads down this tube. We'll get a better look at that in a moment. That's just a fun little detail. But down this side we have a ladder, and as we just walk past here you can see we've got a little peephole to that room down there, which I think is the one with all of the beds in. And so let's head on down here. This is a double ladder, so we go down one side first and then we switch and go down this one just below that torch there. And as you can see, this does in fact go down to the other side of the organ secret room that we have. So this is going to connect to the underworld, and this is the bottom of that cool looking tube. I'll have to see what I can do with that in the future. If we just head on up here, you may have spotted there is another small room in between, and this is the one that actually connects on up here to where we just were a moment ago. And so this just sort of splits off over to this ladder side, and then I created this one here because I really liked the V shape, but this room doesn't have any purpose yet. I figured it could connect up to the chimney since we have that other entrance there. I haven't quite decided yet, but for now I'm really happy with how the rest of this all turned out here. We've got quite the network of secret tunnels and passageways already, which is perfect for something like an old building like this. It's so nice to finally have this project finished. Look how beautiful it looks from the other parts of the city. Already it's creating such a wonderful atmosphere as you run around here, because you now have something in the background to put things in scale when you walk past them. And I think especially when you walk through the bridge here, which was one of my original intentions, you'll notice that as you walk on through, or in my case fly through, you come out under the arch and you're greeted with this beautiful facade, and it's like, pow, massive cathedral. And I think it's also going to be really amazing when you walk from the harbour over there and you'll make your way through a major road. You're going to be greeted with this entrance as well. And man, what a beautiful perspective this thing is from this side. So yeah, I'm really happy, and now I'm glad that I can finally start working on some more projects besides this cathedral. So until I get to work on that, I will see you in the next video.